You're watching Force 13's live streaming service.
Force 13 live. Tropical Storm Helene strengthening. The latest National Hurricane Center advisory has updated those numbers that we have at the bottom of the screen there. It's now 60 miles per hour and a pressure of 991 millibars according to their latest update. I don't think I'll be able to get round to updating those numbers on this stream today, so you'll have to bear with what we've got there, but it's not that much different, but clearly it is a sign of strengthening. As expected, of course, with this storm slowly moving towards the northwest. This is a tropical weather bulletin. Our proper intro has not exported yet, so we're going to have to show that halfway through the stream. Poor software as usual by the sounds of things. But nonetheless, we've got all the other stuff here up right now, and we're looking at this storm continuing to push eventually into the Caribbean, into the Gulf of Mexico rather. It is already in the western Caribbean Sea. Hurricane warnings in effect for a few areas, including on the Yucatan Peninsula, where the storm is potentially going to strike there. Two big questions about this storm really is how far west will it manage to get? One or two models earlier today signifying potentially that it could make landfall near Cancun, although I think they've backed away from that again now. And the other big question mark, apart from how fast will it move when it arrives in Florida, is how strong will it be? And that is obviously going to be the pertinent question as we during the whole duration of this storm as we continue to watch it. Certainly, storm probabilities on that left-hand side there are rising for all of those areas. So, yeah, Recon, two flights that have been entering the storm, but AF305 just now had to abort on their first approach, so they never even got into the storm before they had to abort their mission. I'm not sure why at this point. But we also have NOAA 2 that's currently in the storm at this point, and that's provided the National Hurricane Center their latest figures for their advisory. If you've just joined us, 60 miles per hour is their latest, and a pressure now of 991. With, I think, some lower extrapolated readings. As a matter of fact, a really steep extrapolated readout on their last pass. Interesting to see what dropsons might say on that. I'm just loading it up here on my other monitor, and it is suggesting a pressure probably below 990 at this point, so my expectation here is probably 989 or 988 here as it continues to strengthen. Clearly its structure may not be the best. Certainly the winds on the western side are still pretty absent, but the eastern side and that big burst of convection all over it there really blowing up right now. But we'll get a roundup of the whole tropics in a few moments. Let's now look at the National Hurricane Center's forecast cone. This was the 5 p.m. advisory. Let's get the latest update from 8 o'clock. And there it is, the intermediate advisory, pretty much falling in line with expectations there. And you can see all of those warnings are littered across the United States and some of these coastal areas of the Caribbean. Let's just run through these warnings right now. There are quite a lot. This isn't even all of them on the screen. We have storm surge warnings, of course, as well. So a storm surge warning for Indian Pass southward to Flamingo, Tampa Bay, and Charlotte Harbor. Hurricane warning for Antelope River to Mexico Beach, Florida. Quite a large area there. And Cabo Catoche to Tulum, Mexico. Hurricane watch for the Cuban province of Pinar del Rio and Englewood to Antelope River, including Tampa Bay. Tropical storm warning for a lot of places. Dry Tortuga, slower and middle Florida Keys, west of the Channel 5 bridge. Flamingo to Anclote River, including Tampa Bay. West of Mexico Beach to the Walton Bay County line. Rio Lagatos to Cabo Catoche, Mexico. And the Cuban provinces of Artemisa, Pinar del Rio, and the Isle of Youth. And a tropical storm watch, you can clearly see it plastered all over the eastern part of Florida there and into Georgia. Lake Okeechobee, Palm Beach, Martin County line northward to the Savannah River. So that's the official line from the National Hurricane Center, where we clearly have quite a lot of watches and warnings. They are still expecting this storm to reach major hurricane status. That would be Category 3. And is likely to be a substantial impact. Here's some latest rapid scan imagery. Let's cut to some cameras before I even show myself and our team right now, just because it's getting late. So let's just try and capture the last light that we've got at some of these locations. This is on Cozumel right now, and you can see some potentially thunderstorms in the distance. Certainly some rain going on there. That's looking towards Playa del Carmen, looking northwestwards there along the west coast of Cozumel. So it is raining there, clearly, by the looks of things, as it gets dark at this location. This is Puerto Morelos, which is a little bit further north, also on the edge of this band that is moving in there right now on the western periphery of the storm itself. And let's see if we can go to number 8. This is Cancun, live shot here as well, looking rather moody, looking out to sea there, straight into Helene. Certainly looking quite interesting from this spot. Very dark on the left-hand side. Of course, it is getting late now, but interesting vantage point here, showing the viewpoint from Cancun. Fascinating stuff. My name's Nathan Foy here, and I am joined, and I was hoping to get this screen working. Let me just press some buttons here. I'm joined by Jose, and you're showing us another webcam there, possibly the one we were just looking at, I'm not sure. How are you today? You're not far from the storm's potential impacts. I think you said you're under a tropical storm watch.
Which is something I haven't felt in kind of a long time. It's been a while since I've been under a tropical storm watch, but I won't be surprised if later down the path, if they decide to put it up to a tropical storm warning, which I believe they will or will not.
Maybe. And your location, I always forget where you are. You like Jacksonville area?
No, way to the east. Oh my
gosh. Southeast? Yeah.
Treasure Coast.
Yeah, so all that area under a big tropical storm watch right now.
Yeah.
So what do you reckon? This storm looks like it's going to be quite a big one in the sense of, I mean, people say big, sometimes they mean strong, but big in the sense of the National Hurricane Center telling us quite often in their discussion that it's in the 90th percentile of largest wind fields on that forecast. Does that concern you?
To be honest, yeah. I mean, like, just like for like it's sorry if I'm a lost for words right now. It's because like it's a lot to take in. Because knowing what this storm can truly become later down the path, but like always, even though this storm is like massive, even though it's not even near Florida, but just looking at it on satellite, it's pretty big. Like, I haven't seen a single large hurricane like this in a while.
It is already getting there, isn't it? You heard a little ding before. That means we can now show you the actual intro to our tropical weather bulletin today. Let's have a look at it. There it is, Helene, hurricane and storm surge threat on tonight's tropical weather bulletin. This is how things were meant to look at the top of the hour, but here we go, nonetheless. Now the latest around the wide water tropics, my usual blurb there. It's our tropical weather bulletin for September 25th. Let's take a look at what's going on elsewhere around the world here. So it's Helene. What's left of John died off very quickly over Mexico, and Tropical Depression 18W has formed to the south of Japan. A tropical depression there at this point, not likely to get any stronger. Let's have a close-up of Helene then on day 117 of hurricane season in the Atlantic, and 2 areas of interest out east. So we've got that 80% chance over there in the eastern Atlantic. Looks like that will become a significant storm but move out to sea. 20% behind that as well could move through the Cape Verde Islands later on this week or at the weekend. In the eastern Pacific, the remnants of John on day 134 of hurricane season, you can see still some significant convection around it. It is continuing to cause massive amounts of rainfall as forecasted over parts of Oaxaca and Guerrero provinces. In the western Pacific, it's not just Tropical Depression 18W. We have marked 2 other moderate chances of development. 40% for the system we've been watching for a while, moving through the Mariana Islands, and a 60% chance further west for something that might develop close to Taiwan and could become quite strong. Nothing in the Indian Ocean. There's a little bit of clouds smattered around the Bay of Bengal region, the northern part of India and Bangladesh. A few more clouds out west as well over western India, but not too much to talk about here. And in the southern hemisphere, we have nothing active here in the southern Indian Ocean, or anywhere else for that matter. We were watching a brief potential system that might have formed in the Black Sea, actually. Potential subtropical cyclone. It didn't quite happen, though. Take a look at a close-up of Helene right now then. Here's the latest distances. About an hour ago this was 190 kilometers from Cozumel, 192 from Las Tumbas, the bit that sticks out in Cuba, 224 from Cancun, 420 from Havana, and 584 from Key West. And obviously another look at some of those warnings. So that's our tropical weather bulletin headline today, and still lots of warnings and obviously people taking this storm seriously. Let's look back at this imagery right now, where you can see very large amounts of convection continuing to bubble up there and become ever more expansive over Helene. And we'll bring back Jose there because we're sort of in the middle of a conversation. Very large in size. It's also going to contribute to this potential storm surge impacts. They were saying earlier, I don't know if it's changed since yesterday, but it was 15 feet. Let me just quickly check. Yeah, they're still saying potentially up to 15 feet between the Ochlockonee River to Chesahowitzka. So, Jose, a concern there in terms of the storm surge, possibly the greatest of the hazards.
Yes, pretty much is mostly the storm surge is going to be the main issue, because like I said, every hurricane like this size of Helene, I've seen it like push tremendous amount of storm surge inland, and that's like a problem, like extremely of a problem. So, like, right, I just hope that people in on the coastal lines are like ready and prepared, and hoping they're moving more inland, because like this storm surge, like, it's unsurvivable. Like, no one cannot survive this, and mostly like, we don't even know what's inside of in the waters. There can be chemicals, power lines can go down, and it's gonna make the waters very hazardous because you can get electrified. Like, there's tons of things that can be inside of it.
Yeah, quite often you can get electrocution fatalities from hurricanes. One of the many, and sort of flooding related really, and flooding I think is still about 90% of all hurricane related deaths. Well, looking at this satellite imagery right now, you can see that second ridge of cloud on the southwestern side there, extending from sort of the Cancun region out into the open water there. Recon are just in that southern tip of it right now, NOAA 2. They're heading southeasterly. A drop sond earlier, like we just mentioned, suggesting that the pressure is probably now down to below 990 millibars. And again, I don't have the ability, without going to great efforts, which I don't think is quite worth it, just to change a couple of numbers there. But it still displays 50 on our screen, but the National Hurricane Center did update to 60 miles per hour and a pressure of 991 at their update. 2 recon planes were scheduled to be in the storm during our stream, but one of them did abort not long ago. AF305, mission number 8, didn't even manage to make a pass before they had to turn back around and head back towards base, which they're still in the process of doing. But it's mission 7 which is currently active in the storm. On the northeastern side, it's been getting the strongest winds, as you would expect. The winds so far they got, at times they got about 58 knots flight level winds, and quite a few readings close to 55 knots, which is, you know, borderline 45-50 knots on the surface. So I think it's a decent call to run with the 60 miles per hour. But most notably, and I think I can show you this actually, this latest, this is the recon chart here. You look at the top left panel, that's the winds in the blue line, but the pressure with the red line there, as you can see clearly the plane moving into and through the center of the storm every time you see that pressure dip. But even by recon standards, that second pressure dip there, and you compare it just to the first one, just a massive dip there, extrapolated 987 out of that. I'm not sure what's happened with that, whether we're getting some kind of signals of an eye. You'll also notice the significant temperature gradient there as well. You look to the bottom left panel, that red line, temperature there. First time through the center of the storm, they got nearly 15 degrees Celsius. The second time, they've got just over 17 degrees and a massive spike there. So it looks like something's going on in there, unless it's erroneous data, which I guess it's possible, because they got some higher winds there too. Some interesting numbers to be looking at there, and we'll be watching, I think, with eager eyes as to what they get next time around. It might be a very important pass. Let's switch to the ZER imagery enhancement here, and again you can see here this large bulk of convection blowing up pretty much over the center of the storm. Massive amounts. It's not an eye, by the way. Some people will be saying that yellow ring, there's an eye in there. No. But the wind shear is still there. You can still clearly see that wind shear is having an impact of sorts. The south side there of that convection, massive gradient. You know, the cloud doesn't just collapse downwards naturally. It gets it's like a razor's edge there, and that's one of the telltale signs of wind shear buffeting the storm from the south. However, NHC of course have been telling us, and models have been showing that wind shear will be dropping, and it has, and that's why we've had significant convection over the center, and so that's really what we're looking at this point, and that is the gateway here for sustained intensification, potentially rapid. And we'll take a look at models a little bit later on, but for now this is the latest National Hurricane Center cone. They are still expecting 115 mile per hour major hurricane category 3 on Thursday afternoon, still moving into land pretty fast, but they noted that the projection has slowed down just a little bit. The latest update here suggesting that the landfall will occur quite late on Thursday evening. You know, not very far away. We're already on Tuesday night, so you know this storm's going to arrive quickly. I know sometimes it feels like all storms arrive quickly, but this one especially so. You know, it could be really booking it there at 20-25 miles per hour by the time it's getting up towards the Bend area of Florida, which is already under a hurricane warning, even though the storm is still not clear of Cuba. Let's see if we can take some comments and questions. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. We'll be here to take those live. Feel free to do that, or it helps shuffle along the conversation. I'm just going to update these images whilst we do that. Any more recon updates, of course, we will let you know, but at the moment they're not up to very much right now. Logan says, what do we think South Florida is going to experience? Well, where does South Florida actually begin, Jose?
Southeast.
You don't even know.
No, I really don't know because it's like so confusing where it starts and where it ends. But the whole inland is it's okay. I really don't know where
let's start with the easiest places here. So the Keys, obviously, they're getting they're under tropical storm warnings now. So even though it looks like the storm's going to get quite far away from the Keys, obviously they've been at pains to explain quite often, the National Hurricane Center, during this storm so far, that the winds, especially on that eastern side facing Florida, are going to be very, very widespread. So we could be looking at maybe up to 50-mile-per-hour winds over there on parts of the Florida Keys. So obviously take precautions there clearly. And then I would say anywhere, Jose, really, from the Florida Bay through the Everglades of West Coast all the way up there is prone to tropical storm conditions.
Yeah, yes, pretty much. I mean, I experienced lots of tropical storm force winds from every hurricane that hasn't been near my area, because I could just say back in 2017 with Hurricane Irma, when it made landfall in Big Pine Key, then went up into Marco Island. I wasn't even near the center, and I was getting hurricane gust and tropical storm force winds here, and it was pretty bad. And then same thing came with Ian. I got tropical storm force winds here pretty bad. I lost power. I mean, and there was tons of trees down in my area, even though we're like far away from the center. But like everyone must know, like, that with this size of tropical storm Helene, I say impacts are gonna like it spread all like throughout the whole Florida state.
Here's the storm surge graphics right now, just to make everyone aware here. So they're showing the Florida Keys 1 to 3 feet, but again, all the way from the Keys, from Flamingo, up to Englewood, you're looking at 3 to 5 feet right there. You know, that's pretty significant, even all the way down there. All the way down there. 4 to 7 feet between Englewood and the middle of Longboat Key. 5 to 8 feet up to Anclote River and Tampa Bay. 5 to 8 feet. And then 6 to 10 feet between Anclote River and Chassahowitzka, and 10 to 15 feet up to the Ochlockonee River, and 5 to 10 again to Indian Pass, then 1 to 3 feet to Mexico Beach. It really feels like deja vu, doesn't it, with all the storms that we've had with Idalia and then
Debbie.
Debbie, yeah.
Debbie a month and a half ago.
Absolutely. And then, of course, 1 to 3 feet there as well for part of the east coast there, the Flag of Volusia County line up to the South Santee River. So some significant storm surge concerns here. Here's some more satellite imagery. One of our views there on the infrared on the left-hand side, the last visible pictures there on the right. A wide shot showing that certainly Helene is quite large, some of its banding extending all the way to Jamaica there. And just on the left you can see what's left of John, but again with John, huge amounts of cloud cover associated with it over a large area. And if you missed what happened late last night, it was John that made a Category 3 landfall there, just east of Acapulco, with winds of 120 miles per hour and a pressure of 959. So it did go and do what, in the end, they finally got the forecast right when it was getting through Category 1 and 2, and they got the Category 3 peak nailed down. And it looks like Helene is going to be another one, with their forecast currently going with 115 miles per hour, but it's a tough one. Some models really going to town still with this. Other ones have tapered off a little bit today, but we'll be taking a look at some of those models, in fact all of those models, fairly soon, so stay tuned for that. Let's get some more comments. Will Santa Rosa County get affected by this storm? I'm going to have to find out where that is.
I'm gonna be honest, Nathan. Every name that I would be hearing in the parts of Florida, I have never been to. So I'm gonna just say that right now.
Okay, you're way out over towards the west. You should get away with it, really. It's possible that you might get brief tropical storm conditions, maybe some rain, but quite far west there, you should be okay. But keep watching just in case we get some kind of change to the track. And question about John's damages. I've no idea about what John's damages might be at this point. How will the Fujiwara affect Hurricane Helene's track across the southeastern United States? Well, I mean, I don't. There's no Fujiwara effect with any other hurricane. I know that obviously you can see that the forecast cone takes it somewhat unnaturally towards the northwest towards the end of the forecast period. I imagine that might be because of ridging. I'm just going to have a look and see. I don't think the National Hurricane Center mentioned why, but it's either that or maybe some kind of low pressure down to the south. I'll have to check on the models.
Right now, there's like a high pressure. I think moving into the Bahamas right now.
We got high pressure nearby, weakening. That's why the storm will be able to move north. And then after that, there's no other low pressure in the area, so I think it is being blocked off to the northeast over the Great Lakes, and it's going to sort of stall out really over the central or the northern Mississippi Valley region.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a low pressure system that it's gonna spin around and that it's gonna absorb it. That's what all the models were showing.
I'm not sure. Doesn't look that way to me. Is there anything you'd like to show us right now? Oh, we're on your screen here. Is that radar?
This is the windy. Yeah, it's like half radar, half satellite. But there was some lightning around the eye earlier. I don't know if it's gonna pop up anymore. Yeah, there was like lots of lightning in the center and around the eye wall that was showing. But I think new updates were coming in, so it's lost now.
Okay.
Yeah, but there was tons. There was a lot. There was lots of it.
Interesting. I am actually going to check the Force 13 radar. You can check this out on our website, by the way. We have satellite pages. Normally, we'd be running an automated stream as well with all of the latest imagery, but we are having trouble with that at this time. I have no idea when it will be back, but we can't really properly look into fixing it whilst we've got this storm event going on. It's not very clear radar imagery because it is quite far away from everything, but you can get a general gist of what's going on there. Clear signs of rotation, possibly even the center visible there, maybe. Just at the end of it, losing that imagery. We had a few more questions, I'm sure. Let's see if we can get some of those right now.
There was one from I lost him, but I saw his question earlier, and it says, "What does it mean if there's lightning near the eye?" Well, from past, hurricanes, I've seen tons of lightning, and mostly, people be saying it's indication of strengthening.
Usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had tons of questions, so we'll just talk about these. Could the track shift eastward? Well, certainly. It seems to be hell-bent on doing that. Although it's been quite steady in actually having the landfall in the Bend region, despite the storm already moving further west than expected in the initial phases here. Even from here, it could still make landfall there on the Yucatan. But if it did that, the models all still in unison, really, that the storm is going to head off after that straight to the Big Bend region of Florida. Now, if it did make landfall on the Yucatan, some models were suggesting that earlier on, including the usually aggressive HAFS models. They're not saying that anymore, but earlier they were. And that disrupted the storm's core and limited its strength to probably Category 2. So it would be, in a way, beneficial for the storm to move inland for a bit, to maybe put a little bit of a tighter limit on how strong it will get later on. But I would say here it's not looking good. I would say Category 2 is the minimum that we can expect from this storm, with the upper ceiling. To be fair, the upper ceiling has also decreased, so we've been homing in a little bit better on what we might actually see. And the consensus is still for probably a borderline Category 3, and that's exactly what's being forecast. Will the storm's forecast cone have a chance of moving east again? A similar question there. Always the chance. You look at the cone there, National Hurricane Center usually quite confident that it will pass somewhere within that cone. So the good news really is that excludes Tampa, although it could still get quite close to the center of the storm. And let's not forget, again, this wind field could be very large, impacts far away from the center. But if we are talking about a very powerful hurricane there, Category 3, then it will make a big difference to have those winds just a little bit further out, away from land and away from those populations. Which is the better analog for Helene, Idalia, or Michael? I almost found that I was almost going to say don't be silly, but it is almost getting into Michael territory in terms of the track. It's not too far away. It is within the cone. Of course, it doesn't have quite as much time as Michael did, and I don't think it's as strong as Michael was at this point. So it's not going to get as strong as that storm. Larger as well. And much larger than Idalia too. So in terms of the size of this thing, it's going to eclipse those two by quite some distance. It's a large storm here. And David says, should I evacuate in Tallahassee? Well, you are under a hurricane warning. So certainly if you feel as though, you may experience probably maybe 100-mile-per-hour winds still even in Tallahassee at a worst-case scenario. So if you feel as though, your place ain't built for that, then I would recommend evacuating. And of course, if mandatory evacuations occur, then obviously that will be your decision. When will we check on the Black Sea system? I mentioned it earlier and everyone's talking about it. I mean, there's not much to look at this point. It was looking much better the last 2 days, but it's not looking so good anymore. And a couple of people talking about recon there as well. So let me see if I can get some more recon updates. And it looks like we have some members there as well in the chat too. Say hello to Craft Blocks and Hurricane Austin. What do we think its intensity will be at 11 a.m.? Question from Trap Moth. I don't suppose you meant 11 p.m. I know that some people have been saying, it'll be a hurricane at 11 p.m. Yeah, maybe if it keeps going like this. The winds haven't caught up yet, though, at least from what we're seeing on Recon. So I'm not sure. But if you actually do mean 11 a.m. tomorrow, then take a wild guess. I'm not sure. Probably 85 miles per hour would be my best guess. Looking at Recon, they're not doing anything exciting right now. We've just got NOAA 2. Only the one plane in there. It was supposed to be 2 planes, but AF305 had to abandon their mission before it really got started. They were just entering the northwestern side of the storm. In fact, I can show you here. And as you can see, they had to perform a big U-turn. They were just starting to get some 45 knot flight level winds, and now they're straight on the way back to where they started. So I imagine it's probably quite frustrating for them, as it is for the National Hurricane Center and for us in trying to get that extra data. Hasn't worked on that mission. Where are we going to go next? I've already forgotten. I was distracted. But I'm just looking at a few other things here. Oh, there's another comment there. Is the 1896 Cedar Key hurricane a good analog if Helene goes more east? I suppose it might be. That was already a strong storm by this point. It wasn't. It didn't grow in the Western Caribbean. So from that perspective, it's not. But for the later impacts, possibly. Just basically a lot of similar questions there. Will it become a Category 4? Yeah, it certainly could. A little bit less likely now than it was earlier, but still the potential is absolutely there. I think... Jose, was there anything else you wanted to say there?
No, like I was saying, yeah, I feel like it can reach Category 4. Probably near, or probably it won't. It's just, we just gotta wait and see if Helene decides, to blow up to more of a major hurricane. I mean, though, these surface temperatures are extremely warm. Like, there's enough fuel for it. There's enough fuel. This is enough to make it stronger. I mean, shear has dropped. I don't think there's no dry air anywhere in the area. Pretty much nothing's gonna stop it. Well, until the low pressure grabs it and then snatch it out of there.
I think we're joined by Ethan at this point. Hello there.
Yes, hello from the Midwest US.
And you'll be watching this as well, quite wearily, because the remnants might be heading to your town.
It's not entirely guaranteed.
You're in the cone.
But, I mean, I don't think I actually am, actually.
You're not? Very close to it.
I'm gonna check this, actually. But the main reason why we up here are so excited of it is because we need the rain. We haven't had, I believe it's half an inch or more of rain ever since early August. So it has been a long time coming for any sort of decent amount of rain. And yes, I can confirm we were just outside the forecast zone.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah, I heard a lot of places need rain.
Just a note here, Recon, just around the south side of the storm now, they are turning in, so they are going to go straight into the center of the storm now from the south. A bit of a gap on that south side of the storm at the moment, so they'll be in pretty clear skies until just when they get to the center, when they hit that big, deep convection there. Ethan, the structure of the storm right now, still got some work to do, but it's looking quite good today.
I note that the wind and pressure has gone up quite significantly today. And you've been talking about this morning. Whenever I went into work, it was only a tropical depression, and that was at 10 a.m. basically. And
was it really?
8 hours later? Yeah, 8 hours later. I mean, it became Helene at 11. So 8 hours later from that, well, really 9 hours later. Well, what am I saying? It's 10 hours later after that. It's up to 60 miles an hour. Just 10 hours later. That's quite significant.
I'm pretty convinced that the storm was a bit stronger in the lead up to this.
I mean, it's a pretty big shocking, to be honest, how fast it just started to pick up wind speeds, because how Ethan's saying that I was in school and I was tracking it the entire time. First, it was tropical depression, and once the 11 a.m. advisory came in, I saw the National Hurricane Center tweet saying it's Helene now, and I was like, wow, it's like crazy. And then all of a sudden, 50 miles per hour, now 60. It's just jumping and jumping more.
Are you going to rack up the models for us, Ethan?
I mean, I wasn't necessarily prepared for that.
That's all right. I mean, I'm just going to show all the GFS stuff first, which will give you quite a bit of time if you wanted to. I just wanted to find out. I mean, we can do it here if you want. It's up to you.
Just go ahead and you're I would say.
All right. Well, first of all, we'll look at what the GFS has for everything around the world, the whole model run. So of course you've got Helene there, obviously, with a big wind field already on the eastern side. In fact, possibly still underestimating that wind field there, and then increasing in size. Look at it go. Now it is very close to the Yucatan there. Almost a landfall. Just watch closely. It's just a few miles off, and then it's going. It's still moving northwest a little bit after its closest pass, but finally it shoots off towards the northeast. Don't know what happens to its northwestern side, but really blowing up on the eastern side with hurricane force winds. Category 2, possibly Category 3, into land. Looking at timing for that, it's going to be evening, probably late evening. About 9 p.m. I think, 8 or 9 p.m. there for a landfall, and then continuing inland. Look at that, still hurricane winds well into Georgia, and then continuing off over parts of Tennessee, and then eventually into the Midwest region. And you can see its remnants just getting strewn along all across that area. So that's Helene. Looking at these other potential systems in the Atlantic, so this first one west of Cape Verde, there it is, eventually developing into a tropical storm and then possibly a hurricane. It does stay away from any land though, and it dies off quite quickly there. A second system behind it potentially. I'm struggling to see it now actually, but in the very long range, anything over here, oh look at that, something else bubbles up into a hurricane and becomes very powerful. Looks like it's going to go on the recurve though. Category 4 there at the end, and maybe another storm behind it there too. So remember those who are saying that the Atlantic hurricane season is closed for the year? Well, we could be looking at, and actually, just a minute, I think there's another one here in the Gulf. Just a second. Oh, there's another one shooting up through eastern Jamaica, Cuba, Bahamas, a hurricane there moving off towards, and another one. Oh my goodness. Well, that's very long range, but if that GFS model is correct, that's probably 5 storms there in the next 16 days, which definitely puts the Atlantic back on track towards a big season. Well, what's left of John, whether it tries to become another system there's rumblings of something trying to form there, big areas of wind to its south, and it's going to be an area there of very high rainfall over parts of Mexico. Look towards the very late part of the run, another storm trying to form there, and then hugging the coast for a while as well. But in general, the basin is quiet, out to sea, nothing much. Okay, Westpac. We had, and we'll talk about this in a moment, the formation of 18W. Well, there it is, that little blob there moving off along the coast of Japan, gets stretched and thrown around there. Looks like it even loses itself quite quickly, moving off the coast of near Tokyo and then northeastwards. Then this system forming behind it, that other area of interest for the Mariana Islands at the moment. Looks like it will develop into a tropical storm within the next 5 days. Not all models are on board though, and then it starts to turn northeastwards. Could actually get close to the Tokyo region as well, then turns east, and then this other system which could develop into a significant typhoon. Look at that, really blowing up very quickly there, east of Taiwan. That's around day 4, day 5, 29th of September, and there it is moving westwards, getting to be quite a powerful typhoon, maybe category 2 all over Taiwan, and then pulling northeastwards through Japan, turning post-tropical as it does so, and then off up. Yeah.
They just found pressure of, looks like 986 millibars.
Interesting. We'll look at that in just a sec.
From the Recon NOAA.
Yep.
Yeah, they just found pressure of 986.
We'll look at that in a sec. In the very long range there, just at the very end, another storm blowing up there. South China Sea stays quiet, I think. Yep. North Indian Ocean also staying quiet. South Indian Ocean quiet. South Pacific still looking rather quiet. No surprises, of course. South Atlantic, is it going to throw anything funny at us here? No. And for those wondering about that Black Sea system, well, there it is now. It at one point it had probably close to 50 mile per hour winds, though at this point it's only pushing maybe 30 miles per hour and is about to die off the coast of Georgia. The other Georgia, not the US state, but the country. So that's a look at the GFS model right there. Let's take a look at what Recon are finding then. So we heard there from Jose. I assume that was an extrapolated readout. Was that from what timestamp was that? Do you know? Because it's not going to be this current pass because they're not there yet. I think you may still be talking about the previous pass.
I'm not sure.
They did get extrapolated 987. And drops on Ethan, they got 990 millibars at their last pass at 17 knots. That's something like 988 probably, isn't it?
I'm just looking at the pressure data myself. He said 986. I'm not seeing anywhere near that low.
Some of the extrapolated readouts are getting toward the last one.
I see 989.
Lower than that. Definitely lower than that. Latest satellite imagery looking quite impressive here as we watch it as well. Let's talk to Maury. We've got another 15 minutes to run here, so I just want to make sure we get to talk to everyone. Maury, your thoughts on Helene? It's strengthening clearly and a big bulk of convection here.
Well, looking at the models and all the consistency with the recon data, I do think that the system is on its way to rapidly intensify as expected, and that is unfortunate because currently in the conditions that it is in much more favorable conditions than it will be in the Gulf of Mexico. Even though the Gulf of Mexico, there still will be favorable conditions. It's just even more in this northern Caribbean area. So this might mean that it could get to a stronger intensity by the time it approaches west of Florida. And I'm not really saying that will strengthen too much when it makes to the Gulf of Mexico, but since it'll already be stronger, it may help it in the long run.
All right, we got some alarming news here. The storm is ahead of what the HWRF's last run was expecting it to be by this point. They had 991 at this point, and it's 980 something at this point, so it's ahead of the HWRF. That's never good news. Here's the forecast for that HWRF model then as we watch it. Look at this, starting on some rapid intensification, getting quite close to the Yucatan. Actually a little bit further away than the GFS has, but quite close. And then it turns north, there it is. And then really rapid intensification there, continuing all the way to landfall, 941 millibars there. That is probably a high-end Category 3 at least. So another one there. For the Florida Bend region. Look at that, 950 millibars approaching Atlanta, Georgia, 961 to the east, and then 9
in Indiana.
Oh, really? I don't think so.
I think it's gusts.
973 millibars entering Kentucky there. Quite impressive from the HWRF, although it doesn't even make it into Indiana on that particular run, Ethan, sorry. So let's check the HMON. Let's see how the storm's racking up against the HMON then. At this point, HMON had it at 993, so it's ahead of that as well. Although in just 6 hours it has 981, so I imagine it might level out. And after that, the HMON actually has only slow strengthening. It's trying to get its core together there, but eventually it does get more rapid. there it is, 940s, 930s, 936. Not long before landfall, slight weakening, but still looking at probably a category 4 landfall there on that HMON model. Weakens a little bit more quickly than the HWRF on that. Let's check the HAFS model. Now, last time, earlier, the HAFS actually took the storm into the Yucatan for quite a while, and that allowed it to really struggle, actually, to get towards Florida. I believe it's changed this time, though, again. It's actually quite on par with where the storm's currently at, 989 millibars at 0Z. So this could be a decent one to look at. There it is, low 980s, hugging the coast of Cancun. Look at that, very nearly a landfall even, right over Cancun actually, 976 millibars. And then northwards, strengthening here, really didn't affect it, did it? 933 millibar landfall there. That is at least a moderate category 4, if not higher. And then quickly moving inland again. Impressive. The HAFSB model then, which a lot of people have been noticing a lot more recently because it's been doom casting a lot. But again, quite a good reflection of the storm at the moment on the initialization. So it could also be a good model to look at. That is actually a landfall there in Cancun, Punta Cancun probably, and then moving northwards, real intensification, although it stops for a minute and then it continues there. 945 at landfall. It's actually lower than all of the others that we've looked at, actually. That's lower than that, but still at least a high in Cat 3. Weakens quite quickly, that one, compared to the others as well. What others should we look at here? Euro, let's see if we can get the Euro. And that is a little bit behind now, expecting it to be 997 at this point. Well, it's clearly stronger than that. Again, very close to Yucatan. All these models have taken it much more closer now. Almost a landfall in these cases. And then strengthening to 976 at landfall. Well, clearly underestimating the storm there. But fascinating. And the GFS, we did see it earlier, but let's just take a look at the actual numbers. I think it's a 966 at landfall there. Actually not incredibly strong. Category 2, I think that is. So when we look at all of that there, some of the worst case scenarios next to these global models, who's going to win, guys? Is it going to be one of these worst case scenarios here, or could there still be a little bit of hope here that it will be on the weaker side?
I mean, it really depends if it does make it into the Yucatan or not. Now, the Yucatan may not affect it too much, as it's only going to be there for a very small time. And also, the Yucatan isn't very mountainous either.
No.
But it will probably inhibit the storm's intensification. And I'm not really sure, though, because a lot of them showcase that it'll still have enough time to strengthen even after the Yucatan. What I think might happen, though, is because a lot of the energy is still in the Caribbean, it might get stronger onto approach onto the Yucatan, maybe weaken from there, and then be unable to strengthen as much in the Gulf of Mexico. I think it'll still strengthen a little. I don't think it'll have no chance at strengthening, but it'll have more difficulty than it did in the Caribbean.
Recon literally going through the center of the storm right now. The last update was just short of it. They've got an extrapolated 9... Oh no, they did go through it. They got an extrapolated 989.6. So that leads me to believe, unless the well, no, it is right there. That leads me to believe that 986.9 they got earlier may have been erroneous, considering that they had a wind spike in there, and that 989 is probably a better reflection. Having said that, they did still get an elevated center, I don't want to say I yet, but center temperature, just over 17 degrees. Difficult to make any other inferences out of that, because they approached from the south side, which is barely got any clouds at all, and as such they didn't get very strong winds, only 30 knots on the way in, so not too much to tell you about that. But they will be sampling the northern semicircle now, so we may get some interesting observations if we're still here to catch it, which I'm not sure we will, but certainly looking like it's strengthening. How quickly, not sure here, but just a reminder, the numbers that we've got on our screen here was from the 5 p.m. advisory. We didn't get around to updating it yet, but it is now 60 miles per hour from the National Hurricane Center, 991 millibars. Before we, because we're getting close to wrapping up already, quickly looking at that intermediate advisory, but we got to show you the JTWC cone for Tropical Depression 18W. Here it is. They're going with 35 miles per hour right now, weakening and then strengthening slightly again as it gets closer to Tokyo, although I don't think that will be a tropical cyclone by that point. Guys, team there, any thoughts on any of the other systems around the world here?
I don't think the ATCF's out for 18W.
Oh.
I do want to check that. Let's have a gander.
It is out.
Yeah, 35 miles per hour still.
Yeah.
60 miles per hour, 91 millibars for Helene.
Yep.
And we've also got newly designated Invest 95E.
Oh.
That is actually partially from the remnants of John, actually.
Oh boy. Come on, we can't have John Part 2, can we?
And there was some rumors that it might be sort of, they might rename John, but it does appear that if this system forms, it will be an entirely new system now.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
Wouldn't that be something for the end of season animation?
Oh, it would be dreadful, Ethan. Here's another look at Cancun right now. Obviously, it's gotten dark. Let's see if we can... there we go. We got it looking a little bit better. Relatively quiet, as you'd expect. I know a few of these locations, though, have been getting rain this evening. We were looking at that camera at Cozumel earlier on. Let's see if we can cross back to that one. There it is. Really showing off the light pollution there. In the distance, Playa del Carmen on the left-hand side across the Gulf. And that lighthouse there in the distance, I think. Shining across as well, yeah. Pretty cool effect there. This area had quite a bit of rain earlier. It looks like it's stopped for the time being, but clearly you can see in the sky there some cloud cover. But not really getting any strong winds. This is the western side. There isn't very much going on over there. Recon were just in that western side before. They only got maximums of about 40 knots flight level, and that wasn't even near the coast. So, you know, these areas, if you're expecting to see a lot happening right now, you won't be until at least tomorrow. Let's see if we can quickly take some more questions, and then we'll go and take a look at what happened on this day and finish up here. There's a Insanity Vlog says there's a possible subtropical cyclone developing in the Atlantic. Well, I think I know what you might be talking about. There is a system northeast of Bermuda, which we haven't marked, but I have noticed, which has looked interesting, but I don't know what to tell you about that one. I haven't properly looked into it because we've been busy with Helene.
I have a question about that.
Uh-huh.
Would that be from the remnants of Gordon?
Oh, no.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Well, I don't know. I hope not. Let me just find out. I know that Gordon was going to be doing that kind of thing, but Gordon ended up further east. It was actually that other invest that or the other AOI that we were watching has sort of morphed into that, not entirely, but it is pretty much its own thing. It doesn't look like it will ever become anything. It's attached to fronts, so I don't think that's going to happen. I know this stream seemed to be quite rushed, so I just want to make sure everyone's had their say. Guys, is there anything else you wanted to add during this stream?
No, I just want to say that I hope the residents of the Florida Panhandle into the Big Bend area of Florida is, ready and making last-minute preps, because tomorrow should start to go downhill as tropical storm force winds start coming in. But yet again, I hope everyone for the best and just hope and pray that we will get through this together.
It's another one, isn't it, for that same area though, man. It's been a pretty rotten run in the last couple of years, hasn't it, Ethan?
Yes, it has.
Why is everyone picking on the Florida Bend region? What do you guys do?
I didn't do anything.
Got upset. That'd be called its cousin come in.
People talk about storm surge as well. How much storm surge will be in Tallahassee? I mean, I don't know if it's... I mean, Tallahassee, of course, is a little bit inland, but along the coast there, could be up to 15 feet of storm surge, according to the National Hurricane Center. Any other comments you guys would like to make on the storm surge there?
Just
No comments for me. Just it's probably going to go up, I imagine.
Maybe.
And just realize it will be higher in local bays. One bay that I'm looking at is I believe it's called the Wakasasa Bay. It's in between Cedar Key and Yankeetown. That bay.
Okay.
That could have intense storm surge. I'm just looking at the individual bays because those are areas that would have localized storm surge, as all bays do.
Yeah.
Even without those, though, you will still get lots of storm surge. So don't drive through flooded roadways. Be alert and make sure to evacuate either voluntarily or if it's necessary. Heed precautions when you're along the immediate coast.
And one more question there. What did we all think about 17W? Do you think that it should have been named?
No, not yet.
Not yet. 17W's already gone, Ethan. That was the one at Taiwan.
Oh. That one, in my opinion, should not have even been a tropical cyclone in the first place.
It's been very sloppy in the Western Pacific, hasn't it, lately?
Yeah, it's incredible.
It has been.
Oh, man. All right. Well, that was our team. Ethan, as well as Maury and Jose, who joined us for this stream tonight. We'll say goodbye to them now. Thanks for joining us, guys. And let's take a look at what happened on this day in the world of storms. It was September 25th, 2004, where we had a few systems active. Miri was the most powerful one, though, a Category 4 in the Western Pacific. Jeanne was on its way to major hurricane status, approaching the east coast of Florida as well. Tropical Storm Lisa also developed out in the open Atlantic. Carl was just on its way out there, turned post-tropical at the start of the 25th. Not too far from Greenland by that point. Really shot up there towards the north. So, quite an impressive day back in the world of tropics there. 20 years ago. Back to today then. The next name now in the Atlantic is Isaac. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Christy. And in the Central Pacific, it's Iona. 53 storms so far this year around the world. We're slowly getting up towards normal numbers after a slow start. The next name in the Western Pacific is Cimarron. And in the North Indian Ocean, it is Dana. Yeah, certainly been throwing out those storm names in the Western Pacific in the last few weeks. in the Australian region when we start up. The next name is Robin. Southwest Indian Ocean is Ansha. And in the South Pacific, it will be Pitta. We'll be back with more updates on Helene in due course.
Become an Ultimate Fan today.